yes, welcome back to another video, guys. That's right, today we're in a new month. What month are we in now? Bloody hell, the year's going by so quick. It's October. So that's right, today I am going to be recapping all of the films I watched for the first time throughout the month of September. So that's right, I'm only doing films that I've watched for the first time, and it is just movies. So in case you haven't seen one of these videos before, I don't do TV series here, and when I do rewatches, I don't include that here as well, because I've been doing a lot of rewatching this month with all of the Star Trek films, Star Wars. I've rewatched a few of those as well, funny enough, the two biggest sci-fi franchises, and there's been a few other bits and bobs. But if you do want to keep track of my rewatches and what I've been thinking of movies on rewatches, then be sure to go follow my Letterboxd page, because I do still log everything on there. There is a link in the description to that. But as I say, today, cracking on with just the films I watched for the first time throughout the month of September. So I'm going to scooch on over here, so that when we talk about each of these lovely movies, we can see their movie posters as we talk about them. So first up, the first film I watched in the month of September was Revenge of the Creature, which of course is the Creature from the Black Lagoon sequel. Now, of course, some of you might know I have been watching the Universal Monster films for the first time and really enjoying them, and I'm sort of torn what's my favourite between The Invisible Man, the original, and of course the Creature from the Black Lagoon. So watching the sequels to this was definitely a priority, and I got to say, I really actually enjoyed the second one. Again, I feel like they done something cool and quirky with the story, yet, you know, taking him out of his comfort zone, putting him somewhere else or away from the lake that they found him in originally. And again, just the effects in this one for the time. That's what I was trying to remember with these films when they're made, and I think for the time, the effects were just fantastic. And there's a very, very cool little Clint Eastwood appearance here. I think maybe potentially his first ever, which is very cool. But yeah, I actually had a very good time with this one. You know, it doesn't do anything incredible. It's obviously not as good as the original, but I do really like this film. I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. Then we have Abbott and Costello. Can you believe the word I messed up there was and? Meet the Invisible Man. So I think I watched the Invisible Man's films in the wrong order, because the set doesn't actually put the discs in the right order that I have, which is a little bit frustrating. So I did watch the Invisible Man films in the wrong order. But anyway, this one here, it's my first time actually watching Abbott and Costello. Again, pretty sure I'm getting that right, but apologies if I'm not. Very much the American Laurel and Hardy, and I love Laurel and Hardy. Grew up watching them, so it's kind of cool to see America's answer to them, I guess. And yeah, this one was pretty good as well. You know, you got two comedic actors in there with the funniest Universal monster. I mean, really one of the only funny ones. So it's a very good combination, because I'm currently going through my Wolfman set now, and I can see they appear again, but the Wolfman isn't very funny. But the Invisible Man makes a lot of sense, and there are some funny moments to it. You know, obviously the humour is very kind of outdated, old humour, but, you know, again, I try to put myself in the mindset of what it was like when this film came out. And, you know what, I had a good time with it. I got some laughs out of me. It was an intriguing story. The ending was very good. Yeah, I'll give this film a 6.5 as well. 2 6.5s in a row. Then we have Me Time, which has come under a lot of backfire, which I kind of get. Kevin Hart, getting very boring seeing him do these movies constantly. It's the same film, just rehashed every time now. He's done it with, you know, Ice Cube, The Rock, earlier this year, Woody Harrelson, and now Mark Wahlberg. And you know what? I think this is better than the Woody Harrelson one, which is why I'm surprised this is the one that's come under a lot of fire. But I think the reason I prefer this one is because I genuinely find Mark Wahlberg quite funny. The small screen time Mark Wahlberg has in this movie, he's good. He gets a few laughs at me. But Kevin Hart, I do find him funny, just not when he's playing this type of character. He's always playing the guy, I got a girlfriend or a wife, and I just, all I want to do is just be there for her, and I'm just going to get wrapped up in a crazy story, get dragged along and moan the whole time. It's the same character all the time, and it's really kind of frustrating now. So, I think, yeah, if this film had come out like 4 years ago, I would have spoken a lot more highly of it, but now that I've seen Kevin Hart do this so many times, yeah, it's just getting a bit boring now, isn't it? I'm gonna be a bit kind. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. Okay, then we have 3,000 Years of Longing. I went to the cinema to see this. I was really excited, of course, from the director of the Mad Max films and Happy Feet. He finally strays away from making something about a futuristic, outlaw kind of guy, or dancing penguins. So, yeah, this was kind of interesting. Tilda Swinton is absolutely fantastic in this movie. I want to say that for a start. And Idris Elba was also brilliant. And the stories throughout this movie are just so engaging, all three of them. It reminded me of a similar structure that Wes Anderson went with last year with The French Dispatch. Not done quite as well as that, but still really good. The effects were fantastic. Visually, it was great. Also, the score was really good. And there was some actual laugh out loud moments. It's a very strange film, but I really respect it. And I actually had quite a good time with this one. Gonna give it a 7.5 out of 10. Then we have The Great Escape. First time watching that, of course, Steve McQueen. Very interesting movie. It reminded me a lot of these kind of older classic movies from the late 50s, early 60s, where the structure of the film feels very different to how a film would be structured today. Reminded me a lot of, even though I know this film came out after, it reminded me a lot of Full Metal Jacket, where it didn't really feel like a 3-act movie. It felt like a film of 2 halves. And I'm going to be honest, I was struggling with the first half of this movie. When I say struggling, I was still having a good time, but I was expecting this absolute flawless masterpiece, and I really wasn't getting that. But then the second half of the movie, I really enjoyed. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. The actual escape part, seeing these characters try and get out of Germany, was fantastic. And just, again, so many great bits with, like, you've got these great characters, fantastic sets, these backdrops which are incredible, and on top of that, just a bloody great score as well. It's so engaging, so much fun. But the first half of the movie, I did really enjoy it. I was just struggling to connect with some of the characters in the first half. Saying that, I still had a really good time with this film. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. Then we have, where am I? Here, that's where I'm at. I watched Hellraiser, finally! I've got the Arrow Video 3-film box set. It's been sitting on my shelf for quite some time. I knew there was a new one coming up on Netflix. I think it's next week it's out. Might even be this week, I'm not entirely sure. So I wanted to get all 3 of those films watched in time for this. And the original was brilliant. It reminded me so much of like a Nightmare on Elm Street. It really just had those kind of vibes, and I loved it. Really went in an interesting direction. I was expecting Pinhead to basically be like the main villain of the whole film, and he really wasn't. And I've got to say, the leading actress in it, I thought, done a fantastic job. Just, again, the costumes and stuff, all the over-the-top gore, I loved it. It was so... it was just great to watch. I love practical effects. I love going back to the 80s and seeing how those movies back then kind of looked. And it just screamed 80s horror, kind of cheesy, over-the-top vibes, and I loved that. I really digged it. It was a really good movie. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. Next up, we have Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Yeah, this is a movie that came out, and I'm going to be honest, I really wasn't sure about this movie. I'd seen a few people. I'm a huge fan of that Ralph the Movie Maker, and, I normally trust his opinions on stuff, and he was even raving about this film, and I was like, okay, a film about a shell with shoes on. Okay, this is one of the best films of the year, is it? Okay, sure, whatever. Well, they were right. It genuinely is one of the best films this year. A24 have had a cracker of a year. So yeah, I know that there are going to be some people watching this video are going to be like, no, I'm not watching that, it looks ridiculous. And I completely get it. That's what I was thinking for like a solid month. And then eventually I was like, no, I'm going to watch this. But the show itself, Marcel, she looks adorable. The voice actress doing it, I forget her name, but she's so good at it. Like, perfect voice casting. And the actual style, it's like a mockumentary kind of thing. It's just so good. And I laughed out loud a few times during this movie. I really did. There's a lot of emotion in it. I got sad, I got really happy. There's just so much going on in this movie. It's a pure joy. I was shocked with how good this film was. I've never seen anything like it. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Then we have The Creature Walks Among Us, the final Creature from the Black Lagoon movie. And, yep, they missed the ball a bit on this one, unfortunately. This one here, they missed it. I wasn't a fan of them taking him out of the water. The whole kind of idea of me enjoying... Or the thing I enjoyed about the creature the most, the aspect of it, was that he was in the water. He was completely different. He felt the most different. He looked the most different to all the other Universal monster movies. And here they kind of brought him up on land and turned him into a bit of a Frankenstein character. And I really wasn't a huge fan of that. Genuinely, by the last act, I was really losing interest. And yeah, it's a shame. This one really dropped the ball for me. I didn't hate it. I didn't dislike it, to be honest, but I just didn't like it. So for me, it's a very middle-of-the-road film, so I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. Then we have... Where am I at? Okay, then we have Invisible Agent, which is my least favourite. Oh, this sounds like I don't like being this negative on the Universal Monster films, because I'm really having a great time with them, but we've just had 2 of my least favourite ones here back-to-back. This is currently my least favourite of the Universal Monster films. I just did not find this film engaging at all. The Invisible Man himself was not very funny, and that's the kind of vibe I got from all the other Invisible Man films. And I get this when this film came out, 42, I believe, in the heart of the war and stuff. Well, not in the heart of the war, but, you know, we're very far into the Second World War at this point. I get maybe a comedic tone might not be the most appropriate thing, but I found that the actual Invisible Man himself was very dry, kind of boring at times, especially compared to what we've had. And then there were like no interesting side characters, and the sets and stuff, they really didn't move about much in this movie. It just all felt very half-assed to me a bit, and I just really couldn't get into this one, unfortunately. Maybe a rewatch will do this one good, but yeah, my least favourite of the Universal Monster films so far, definitely. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. Then we have Daleks' Invasion of Earth, 2150 AD. So this is the second of the 2 Peter Cushing Doctor Who movies. You can see I've got both the lovely box sets there, which I was very lucky to pick up. And the first film I enjoyed, but I didn't love it. The second one, it rushes you in. Like, it moves like a steam train for the first 5 to 10 minutes. And then it slows down. It sort of just gives the audience a bit of breathing time. And from there on, it is such a fun movie, this one. I had such a great time with this. I much preferred it to the first film. I thought the story was more interesting. I like the fact that it was on Earth as well. I always kind of like Doctor Who when it comes back to Earth, because it's, I don't know, it's just a bit more interesting, I find. That's not saying with the TV series when they go to alien planets, it's not interesting, because it obviously is. There's a lot of great episodes that are set in space in Doctor Who. But with this movie, I think, because you've got a lot of human characters, and just to bring it back down and ground it, and to actually go in time in this one as well, was very exciting. The Daleks was so cool. They were badass. I like the fact they had some human slave kind of robots walking about. They were fun. But yeah, just a lot of fun. Every character seemed to have something to do. There were a couple surprising moments, and Peter Cushing was great again. I really, really like this film. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Then, okay, then we have Pinocchio, the live-action Disney adaptation that has gone to Disney+. I was excited for this movie. I really like the director. He's done some incredible films in the past. And Tom Hanks, was it their 3rd film together, I think? I think they've done... Which ones did they do? Was it Forrest Gump and Castaway? Was it Captain Phillips? I can't remember. But they've worked together a few times. He seemed like perfect casting as Geppetto. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be great. Pinocchio is one of my favourite Disney films as well. I grew up with that one. I love it. Wow, this film missed the mark so hard. It opens and like it looks okay. Like Geppetto's shop looks cool. Jiminy Cricket looks good, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt voicing him is good. Pinocchio looks good. The kid voice actor, bit annoying, but you know he sort of suited the role, I guess. Tom Hanks, I hate saying this because he's such a good actor, but he really wasn't very good in this movie. And then they move outside of Geppetto's shop and the film just derails. It just becomes cringe. And again, it feels very half-assed. Like, it's like, yeah, we got to get here to get here to get here. And then we can end the movie. There are just so many poor decisions in this film. It was a painful watch on the eye as well. The bit where the kid turns into the donkey was... I was kind of laughing out loud. Yeah, Pinocchio, really, really not good. One of the worst Disney live-action films. Potentially the worst, but, you know, there's a couple others out there. You know, Mulan. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to give this film a 3 out of 10. Then we have The Invisible Man's Revenge, which you know what, I just don't know what order these Invisible Man films actually happen in. I could have looked it up before the video, and it probably does actually say on the back of my box set, but yeah. Anyway, The Invisible Man's Revenge, this was a big improvement over the previous film. It felt like the first one again, because, you know, obviously I'd seen the one with, what was their names? Abbott and Costello, which just felt like their movie with the Invisible Man sort of on the side. And then the last one, which I didn't like, this felt more like, okay, this is what I remembered loving about the Invisible Man. Good story, good side characters, and an all-round good conclusion. And again, for the time, some pretty cool effects. So yeah, I had a good time with this one. I'm going to give this one a 6.5 out of 10. And then we have a really interesting film, Climax. So I have had this in my Arrow video range for a while, been meaning to check it out. Obviously, A24 as well, there's a good sign. So yeah, I've been really, really meaning to check this one out. I believe it's a French film, and wow, this film blew me away. Like, there's barely any dialogue. It's very strange. The idea, the premise of this movie, these kids all taking, I think it was acid, they took way too much, that they went so overboard, and, you know, it does go over the top, the plot, the writing, you know, I don't think anyone would go that mental on that amount of drugs, but anyway, they obviously do, and just things spiral, and it's so fascinating to watch, but the way it's told through the brilliant acting, and it's not really my type of music, but it works so well with this movie and the way it's mixed in. And the cinematography. Gorgeous. Absolutely fantastic. Had me on the edge of the seat the whole time. So, yeah, I love this film. This is 8.5. Great film. Then, See How They Run. Saw this in cinema. Another Who's Done It movie. Because literally we have bodies, bodies, bodies. Like, I think I saw that like 2 weeks before this. Right at the end of August. So that was kind of fun, seeing two whodunits almost back to back. This was really good. This was really good, but I do have a couple big issues with it. But let's start with the positives. The sets were brilliant. I thought the pacing was great and the runtime was really good. All of the acting, fantastic. The two lead police officers were cracking, absolutely fantastic. The Irish actress, I forget her name off the top of my head, from Lady Bird and Little Women. She was incredible in this movie. She's fantastic. I want to see her get some more roles, to be honest, because she doesn't pop up enough. Sam Rockwell, of course, fantastic as well. And a good conclusion. But my two issues are, I thought it was kind of obvious who the killer was. I thought it was kind of obvious how this plot was going to end, because they literally say it at the start of the film. And I even caught this out in the cinema and said to my mate, I bet that's how the film ends, and it does. And there's just not enough characters in this. There weren't enough suspects, I didn't find. But nevertheless, it was very entertaining. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. Okay, where are we at? Then, Fall. I mean, we all knew this was going to be shit. Big surprise, it was. It was bloody terrible. The plot twist is what I want to talk about at the end. I won't spoil it, obviously, but there's a twist that happens, and it might be the funniest movie twist I've ever seen. Like, I pissed myself. I had to message people after and be like, you seen this movie? Yeah. What the hell was that? Yeah, terrible. 2.5 out of 10. So bad. And Do Revenge come out. A film which was on my radar because it's my Hulk stars in it, and Sophie Turner's in it as well. And, you know, obviously big Game of Thrones fan, so I'd like to keep up to date with what actors from that are doing. She only has a small part, but her scenes are quite funny, actually. But the film itself, Netflix, the posters, the trailers, this looks terrible, to be honest, I thought. And it was actually quite good. It was actually really interesting. The dynamic between the two main characters I thought was really cool. Some very interesting side characters. And the way the story went, the first 2 acts were just fun. I was like, this is good. You know, it's better than I expected from Netflix. Not blowing me away. And then the final act of the movie does something quite different. And I was really into it. And yeah, this film surprised the hell out of me. It was a lot better than I thought it'd be. 7 out of 10. Then, Dracula has risen from the grave, because he rises from the grave all the bloody time. So this is the next Christopher Lee Dracula film. So, in case you're not sure, this is not part of the Universal Monster films. That's a different Dracula. I started watching the Christopher Lee Dracula films, and they've sort of crossed over with my Universal Monster watches. So, yeah, and I can't lie, I'm not loving the Christopher Lee Dracula films as much as I hoped I would. I really liked the first movie. But anyway, this was good. I did enjoy this. There was a few interesting side characters, like the woman who ran the bar and stuff, and I was quite sad with how her kind of story arc concluded, because she was the most interesting character. And yeah, they kind of, I don't know, the main guy in it, I'm not sure, he should have been redeemed quite as easy as he was. But yeah, I thought this was a good film, don't get me wrong, but I'm just not loving these films yet. I'm just not quite getting it. But Christopher Lee, so good in this role, though. So good. He's a fantastic actor. And, you know, I'm pretty sure people are always going to remember him as Sauron, Count Dooku, and then probably Dracula. That's probably going to upset some people, but I just think Lord of the Rings and Star Wars are a bit more well-known. But anyway, this will always be one of the big 3 parts he's had that he'll be remembered for sure. But I'm going to give this film a 6 out of 10 still. Then we have the next Karate Kid. So obviously a new season of Cobra Kai come out. Watched all of that. Loved it. And I thought, do you know what? It's probably time I watch the next Karate Kid, because they might introduce something from that soon. Because they've done everything from the first 3 movies. They've brought everything from them back. So it got added to Netflix as well. I want to say that. I was like, oh, okay. I was at work. I was like, I'll chuck it on here while I'm at work. Probably the worst script I've ever heard of in a movie. It makes Attack of the Clones' script look like it was written by Shakespeare. Like, genuinely terrible. Like, literally, the opening stuff between her and her stepmom, I think. It's so hilariously bad. The fights are so over the top. There's no, like, big dojo bit or nothing either. The main villain, the guy who apparently the director wanted Jack Nicholson to play. Thank God he didn't. So terrible, so bad. Like, it's just embarrassing. Yeah, I really didn't like this film. The only saving grace was Mr. Miyagi, because he has some very funny moments in it, as always. I'm going to give this film a 3.5 out of 10. Hellraiser 2, yeah, really enjoyed this. Really good sequel, actually. One of the better ones of those kind of old, classic 80s, 90s horror films. Really good fun with this one. Again, I liked where the story went. I liked that there wasn't an overuse of Pinhead, which I was kind of expecting. But we didn't get that. And again, just the characters looking fantastic. And the way it tied back into the first film, I thought was really good. And pretty exciting conclusion. Gonna give this film a 7 out of 10. Then we have The Woman King. Wow, so I reviewed this film here in detail on the channel, so I'm going to be quick on this one. This film was just absolutely fantastic. It really blew my mind. I was so happy to get to see this at an early screening. My good friend Ryan went to the premiere last night as well, and that looked fantastic. So many great elements about this movie, from the story itself, which was brilliant, to the incredible acting. Yeah, and just the sets, the score. My God, the score was incredible. And yeah, I just had such a good time with this film. I thought it was brilliant. One of the best of the year for sure. 8.5 out of 10. The Invisible Man Returns. Did I say The Invisible Man Returns earlier? Because it was Revenge earlier. Anyway, The Invisible Man Returns. Again, just it felt very similar actually to the first one and The Invisible Man's Revenge. Again, it had that kind of sense of what the film actually was about, and you know, it had good humor throughout, good effects, and I want to say the final act, there's a chase through like a coal mine. And that was great. That was so much fun. One of the highlights of all of the Universal Monster films. I think the first two acts just felt, they were good, but they weren't great. The final act for this one really brought this film up for me. So yeah, 6.5 out of 10 for this one. Then we have Under the Skin, which might be an A24 film as well. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head. Starring Scarlett Johansson. Seen a lot of people recommend this film, and I was excited to watch it. Again, maybe it's that thing of like hearing people big it up for so long that I found myself a little bit disappointed, but I did still have a great time with it. I thought the eeriness of it was great, the weirdness as well of like what her character was doing to people. There was some fantastic shots in it. The cinematography was great, but yeah, there was just some the pacing was a little bit too slow for me at times, but very strange movie, but I did really like it at the same time. Just didn't love it as much as others. But I am going to give it an 8 out of 10. Then, where are we at? Okay. And we have Don't Worry Darling. So I reviewed this one here in detail as well. Thought the first act was surprisingly good. Second act, I got really bored. And then the third act was a disaster. The conclusion to this plot is terrible. There are things left unexplained, and it really ruins the whole movie. Other than that, Florence Pugh's fantastic, the score is great, and the sets are brilliant. So there's some really good aspects to this film. It just falls flat on its face at the end. And Olivia Wilde, I really hope that, you know, you pick a better script, a better story, because I know that this is the same person who wrote Booksmart, and they've done a great job with Booksmart. Maybe pick someone else for the next film if you're going to take it to the next step with the filmmaking, because, you know, she's got it in her to be, like, you know, Oscar-worthy director, I think. I really do believe it. But this wasn't it. 5.5 out of 10. 5.5. 5.5. Then, Ticket to Paradise. I know what everyone's thinking. Really? You went to see that? Yes, I did go to see that, because it's George Clooney, and I saw that it was directed by the person who made the Mamma Mia films, and I like those films because they're just fun and innocent. Just a good time, pleasant, they're joyful. Good to have that shit every now and then, especially with the world we're living in today. And yeah, that's what this film was. It doesn't do anything incredible. It doesn't try to be an Oscar-worthy film. It doesn't try to recreate The Godfather or anything like that. It's very self-aware of what it is. It runs with it, and it is fun. I had a very pleasant time with it. Likeable characters, rooting for them the whole time, a few laugh out loud moments, and a nice ending where I was just left the cinema happy. I'm going to be probably too kind on my score here, because realistically it's probably like a 6 to a 6.5 out of 10. But I'm going to give it a 7, because it was just so entertaining, and I do want to watch it again. I had a very good time with it. Then we have Blonde. Oh dear, Blonde, okay. Ana de Armas' new movie, of course, where she is playing Marilyn Monroe. I feel very uneducated in this, talking about this movie. I've said this a couple times now in my Letterboxd review and my relay for it. Yeah, this film, Blonde. Look, I don't know much about Marilyn Monroe. I don't. She's never someone that's piqued my interest, to be honest. And I've done a little bit of research before, and I hear this isn't based off her actual story. It's based off a fictional book, which is loosely based off her story, which people hate the book anyway because it is very insulting to her memory. But this film is based off that book, so people also hate in this movie because it's insulting to her memory. I don't know, there's so much about it, and I can't quite process it all because I just don't know enough about it. So I'm going to judge the film as a film, and I'm going to say there are some aspects about this I love, but it feels very disconnected at the same time. I don't think it's a bad film by any means. I think there's a lot of great aspects about it, from Ana de Armas' performance. I think she's very good in it. I don't know how accurate she is to what Marilyn Monroe was like, because I don't know loads about Marilyn Monroe. But the score was really good. I thought the Cinematography was great. The sets and costumes and stuff, beautiful. I think they should surely be going up for Oscars, but the backlash might scare the Oscars off. But then there are problems with this movie. For one, the runtime doesn't warrant it. It's too long for sure. And then I get that they're trying to be very creative and artistic with this film, which I really appreciate. I do. But they go for like so many different styles throughout the movie, and they drop one style and then pick up another style, and they drop another style and pick up another style. I don't know if this is to reflect the time or like what was going on in that period of her life. I'm not too sure. I didn't quite pick up on it. But I respect it, but it felt a bit sloppy at times for me. It's a really weird movie. Again, I don't know much about Marilyn Monroe. I don't know much about any of this sort of stuff, so please don't judge my opinion on this one too bad. But yeah, I'll give this film a 7 out of 10, which some people are going to be really angry at probably, because I know that people are angry about this film. But yeah, anyway, there we go. I don't want to talk about that one anymore. I'm scared. Next up, we have The Munsters, 2022, directed by Rob Zombie. Now, let me be honest with you about The Munsters. I haven't seen loads of it, but The Munsters have always seemed like a very outdated kind of thing anyway. Like, there are a lot of things that could come back, and we could get modern adaptations of. Funny enough, the character I'm going to mention, I've already talked about today, and he makes a cameo in this movie. The creature from the Black Lagoon. Make a modern creature film. That would be great, I reckon. The Munsters is not, they're not a group of characters I would say they need a reboot. I don't think they do. This is no disrespect to the original show, because I'm sure it's great. But I don't think it would, I didn't think it would work as a modern adaptation, and it really didn't. Rob Zombie doing it as well. I'm not a Rob Zombie fan. This is one of the worst films, not just of the year, but I've ever seen, period. This film was fucking awful. It was so bad. The story was just embarrassing. The dialogue was hilarious. The acting was kind of pathetic, and I'm really sorry to the actors in it, but it was just so over the top. It looked so cheap visually. There was nothing. Honestly, I can't think of a good thing about it. I thought it was a terrible movie. You know, fair play to Rob Zombie, you made a movie, but that's all I've got for you. Shit. Just shit. I'll give it a 1. I'll give it a 1 out of 10. I thought it was so bad. Genuinely one of the worst films I've ever seen. Okay. 3 films left. Hellraiser 3. Yeah, third and final film in my Arrow video box set. People would warn me the third one was where the franchise starts to go downhill. And I'm sure I will watch all the other Hellraiser films at some point. But I wanted to watch all 3 in my Arrow video box set because I've had it for a while. And I wanted to watch it in time for the new one. And yeah, it went wrong. This is where things went downhill. You know, I just think that Pinhead has a much bigger presence in this one. There's a few other villains and stuff, and it lost the charm a bit. It lost the charm, I think, is a good way to describe it. I ended up being a bit bored as well throughout it. Some of the effects felt a bit more rushed as well. I don't know. Just didn't vibe with this one as much. Didn't hate it. So, yeah, I'll give it a 5.5 out of 10. Don't really have loads to say on that one, to be honest. Hocus Pocus 2 came out, and as people know, I watched the first one only a couple months back, so I was ready for this, so I don't have the nostalgia that everyone else has, but I enjoyed the first one enough, didn't love it. Please, I didn't have to wait 30 years for this one. I just didn't think it was great. I just thought, you know, compared to the first one, like, there were so many things that just didn't work about it. Like, the story, again, just wasn't interesting enough. The dialogue wasn't very good. I know it's Hocus Pocus. I know I shouldn't be looking into it this much. But none of the jokes landed for me. The only good thing was seeing the 3 witches back. Other than that, it was like, it just, nothing really worked for me. It just didn't really click. There wasn't really anything entertaining about it for me. I found a lot of it quite cringy, if anything. But again, I know this is aimed for younger kids, and people who watched this when they were younger are going to be showing it to their kids, saying, hey, here's a sequel to a film we used to watch at Halloween. So I get that. But for me, it just didn't really work very much. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. And then finally, the final film I have to talk about is Intergalactic, which is technically like a Netflix special movie. But yeah, the animation style to it is fantastic, first off. It reminded me a lot of Into the Spider-Verse. And the characters and stuff felt so real. Like, the way they were written, the dialogue was great. I love the fact they didn't stray away from letting the characters use a lot of bad foul mouth, because it really grounded them, made them feel real. And yeah, again, it's just showing these people in real life situations, and it was just a fascinating film to watch, told through this animation style, and the actual artistic perspective on how to tell this story by having the main guy, because he's an artist, having his pictures sort of come to life at moments throughout the movie as well. I thought was really cool. Yeah, surprising one from Netflix. Another really good animated film. They've had a couple really good animated films, Netflix, this year. They really have. You know, Apollo 10.5 and Sea Beasts. Yeah, I'm going to give this film a 7.5 out of 10. Really good. But I got to pick a film of the month, and I can't believe I'm saying this because it's also still in my top 10 of the year, and it might very well remain there. Depending what else happens for the rest of this year. But Marcel the Shell with Shoes On is actually my film of the month. I know. A film about a talking shell is my film of the month. Incredible. But anyway, there we go, guys. That is it for this video. I hope you have enjoyed, as always. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video, leave a message. And as always, I'll see you next time for another video. Bye-bye.